Oh, you want to unclip your microphone?
Doing one of these?
Yeah. I just a little further down because otherwise I'll probably peak.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very professional.
Yeah.
Laurel and bloody Hardy.
You ready?
Questions?
Oh, yeah?
Were you born ready?
Always.
Tuxedo Underground, the Sonder Project. Right here, right now.
I guess start at the start to understand the man. Where were you born? Who were your parents? What were they like?
I was born in Cootamundra, New South Wales.
Oh.
Yeah. Moved down here when I was 6 months old.
For work?
No, not for me. No, the old man came down. And it was kind of funny. He got a message from his brother. He said, come to Melbourne, urgent. And he was thinking something was wrong with his mother. And he got down here and turns out the uncle had a painting job for him. Nothing to do with Nan. He said, got this job for you to go do that job for me. And we stayed. So, grew up in Collingwood.
Mm-hmm.
And my backyard, back in those days, was the whole of the CBD. As a 5-year-old, I'd leave home, walking, go up to Eastern Hill Fire Station, playing the fire trucks, which was great, and then walk into the city, go to the museum because it was free, and then down onto the Yarra River, where the ferries would come up to Princess Bridge there, then walk back home again as a 5-year-old, which you can't do that today.
No way.
No. So life was a lot easier back in those days, and then we moved out to Reservoir, and was that 64 thereabouts?
Yep.
No, it was before that. It's been 62. I was 8. Yeah, so 62, and hence the reason that's where we all grew up, and everything started from there.
So, at what point did you decide to leave school, or did you finish high school? What happened with your sort of teenage years?
Oh, God. I left at 15, so what's that, year 9? School principal there wouldn't allow me to go up into Form 4 because my marks weren't good enough. I passed, but so I said, oh, well, I'm leaving. And I left. I went and worked with the old man for a few months, got a job as an apprenticeship as an electroplater. If you know what electroplating is.
I think so, but I don't know if I have the words to articulate it properly. You're like putting metal in liquids, and then you electrify the liquid, and it like zinc plating and stuff like that. Yep,
exactly right. That's it. A lot of your chrome wheels, bits and pieces, chroming, and plastics was all the go-to. So all your TV panels, gold-plated. That's back in the days we had to actually physically turn the channel over.
Yep. Not
like today. So there was that, and your trophies. We used to do a lot of them, the figurines and the trophies. So you had a lot of friends because they all had cars. They wanted bits and pieces chromed on the car. So there was a lot of that. So that was an interesting apprenticeship in that respect. So stuck that out and then moved on from there. So it was all right.
Yeah. You didn't get into too much trouble when you were a teenager?
I never got into trouble that I got caught for. That's the best way of putting that.
Yeah.
So, but at 15, I joined St. John's Ambulance, and that's where I met Phil Wilcock. He was also a keen music lover as such. He and I were both very, very competitive. And we would sit around and plot how we were going to take over the world musically. So
that sounds like a familiar story.
Yeah, it does sound familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. So, and then we formed our first band. It was just a drummer and a bass player. So back in those days, you put records on and you would play those. And we do that every weekend. And we had one bike between us. So he would ride up to my place on a Friday night. My mum would take him home on the Sunday night. And then I'd ride down on the bike the next weekend, leave the bike there, and his old man would bring me home. So, and that's the way it worked out. So it was a lot of fun back in those days. But, both Phil and I were fairly good pool players. And at the ripe old age of 16, I suppose, thereabouts, 15, 16, we hit the local pub and we played pool all night. And we only ever bought one beer, which is the first one, because back in those days you played for beers.
Yeah.
And we never lost. So we go and drink whatever we drank, and then we buy a six-pack, which was about $1.25 back in those days for a six-pack, and go across to the lake and sit on the train and go and work out what we were doing musically. So, yeah, it was a pretty easy lifestyle back in those days.
Did the band have a name?
It did, the first one. It was called Pagel.
Pagel?
Yeah, Pagel. And it came from a TV commercial on wines. It was a wine company called Pagel. So...
how cheap was the wine?
Don't know. I wasn't able to buy any, Vince. I was too young. So we had that, and Phil's mate, Gary, came and joined us.
Playing what?
He was a guitarist, singer-songwriter at 14, and he wrote some really good tunes. Another pommy kid. And we went along there for a while, and then all of a sudden I was introduced to a bloke called Steve, and I looked at Phil and said, "Who's Steve?" He said, "He's the new bass player." I go, "Right." He said, "You're out, he's in." So
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that was it. So I was out of the band, but Steve got to be good friends actually. And Gary went on, and he went on to what was Kevin Dennis' New Faces back in those days. Got recognised and got a manager and actually put out a couple of albums. But he was totally unreliable. Funny about singers, but I know Phil and I discussed a few things, and they had a gig down in Chinatown, and he just never turned up. They all be there and no Gary.
I was never that bad.
No. So that folded after a little while. But, then we sort of all went different ways, and then I put a new band together, all guys out of Reservoir, and that was originally called Pig Malloy.
Pig Malloy.
Pig Malloy. Now, Pig Malloy was named after a TV show called Adam 12, which was obviously a cop show, and one of the coppers was called Malloy.
Yeah.
So I said, let's call this Pig Malloy, and had that written on the side of the van. So, which was a bit of a take on the coppers, I suppose, back in those days. And then eventually we just dropped the pig side and just went with Malloy. There was a lot of good musos that came out of Reservoir back in those days. So, yeah, you had to be on your game. And we had a hall down in Preston, the Racabite Hall. So it was like a little terrace hall. And you might book it, say, on a Friday night, and we book it on the Saturday. So you leave all your gear in there, and we would all go in and jam with each other. So it'd be a whole weekend of just music.
Yeah.
And because it's wrecked by hole, you weren't allowed to drink in it. So the drain and the rubbish bin out the front was always full of cans and bottles. It was great. And I remember there was a youth club a few doors up, and we were playing one night, and everybody at that youth club was standing outside our place listening to us, which upset the youth leaders, I suppose. We want our people back. But, yeah, you always drew a crowd when you play something like that. Yeah. It was good. It was good fun.
Playing rock in, what, the 70s, early 70s?
It was the early 70s, and pub rock and blues predominantly.
Nice.
So, yeah. But there was sort of 3 groups, and we could all interchange with each other. So, and you just rock up and somebody said, oh, you can have a play for a while. And just the way it worked. So, but we all knew each other. And that was just great. And there was plenty of live venues back in those days. Not like today. There's nothing around today, as you blokes know. Yeah. So, but yeah, every second pub had live venues. And other venues, they called them discotheques, but they weren't discotheques back in the 70s and late 60s. It was just a music venue which had no other name for them. You know, you couldn't buy alcohol, anything like that, and it'd be soft drinks or coffee. And it was just all about the music. It was good fun.
So, digging into that sort of music side of things a bit more, do you remember what the first gig you ever went to was?
Yeah, at Festival Hall.
Good old Festy.
My first gig at Festival Hall, I think. Oh, no, second gig.
Yeah.
I went to.
Yeah, it was Roy Orbison.
Nice.
Yardbirds. Johnny Young. And I was 12. So, the Yardbirds back then would have had Jimmy Page in them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And good lineups.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You had him. Nah. I think he had a very brief stint with them just before Cream was formed.
Yeah.
Very brief. And then you had the Yardbirds, and then you had the Birds. And the Birds had Graham Nash in them. And I think Neil Young was in that band too at one stage. So, and they were there to try and counteract the Yardbirds. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as I said, I was only 12, and that venue only held 5,000 people. But that was the first one.
Yeah.
And Johnny Young was the Aussie token for that band. But, and obviously Roy Orbison was the main.
Oh, he was huge in those days.
Oh, yeah. Massive. With his sunglasses. But
were you already into music at that point, or was that a starting point for it?
Oh, yeah, I was. Like everybody, we all tried to put a band together. Danny was there, and the Maloneys, and the old man had a tape recorder, and we're trying to see who could sing. And that just went nowhere. So it was an absolute waste of time and energy. But with Phil, it was totally different. We were both pretty much on the same level where we wanted to go. And I know I got my bass and amp, which was done through Bratches on hire purchase. Okay. And that's how I started with that. And Phil went out and got a set of Pearls. I think Pearls were his first set. So, and we just practiced in his bedroom or my bedroom, and because we put towels over the drums to deaden them off. And my uncle was a drummer in the big bands back in the 50s.
Is this Uncle Don?
No.
Your namesake?
No.
Different uncle?
Yeah, no, there's Uncle Keith. He was an uncle through marriage, but he played in the big bands back in the 50s and that. So he taught Phil how to tune the kit up and everything else. And he was quite a good drummer back in his day. So, but yeah, it was good fun.
When you were playing, do you have any particular memories, particularly those early days of stuff going really, really well or horribly wrong?
Yeah, a lot of going horribly wrong.
Like having the cops called on you during band practice at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Not that I know from experience.
Yeah, nothing really. Oh, nothing horribly wrong. You sort of sit and you just practice the shit out of a song. You just play it over and over and over again. Diane had a party, and it was Phil, me, and another guy called Tony, the guitarist. And all they wanted was one song, which was called Venus, by Blue Mink, I think it is, Swedish band. Only song they ever had. And we just had to play it over and over and over again. So, but, yeah, they were the days of the garage bands.
Yeah.
Because I know we go to Tony's place and he leave the garage door up and there'd be a mob out the front. So, and yeah, that's just the way it evolved. So, but it was interesting. And probably a lot easier for us than what it was for you guys. So, in that respect. So, but yeah. And, well, Phil disappeared. Went off and got himself married. Then Russell, you've heard me talk of Russell.
Yeah.
He came into the band. He was a guitarist and singer. And we just sort of then germed on a lot of stuff that nobody was playing, like John Mayall, Stevie Winwood with Traffic and Blind Faith, stuff like that, real bluesy sort of stuff. And then your typical pub rock, bit of Thorpe, Black Sabbath. So just go with those. But Russell, he didn't really have to get up and go any. The drummer was no good. I won't mention names. But, yeah, we just had trouble finding drummers that were good enough.
Mm.
So, but normally we'd pinch a drummer off somebody else and we got through it that way. So, but yeah, they were kind of interesting. And with that band, that was still called Malloy, we played at Sienna Girls School, which is over in Camberwell, private school. And we got in one of the classrooms to rehearse and tune up. And somebody come and knock on the door and said, "Can you turn it down?" I'm going, "Why?" They said, "You're louder than the band that's playing." Okay. And we only had them up on about 3. We used the Marshall amps. And when they were a school band, I forget what they were called now, but they weren't bad. And I know there's probably 400 or 500 people there. So when we went on, the guitarist we had, Rod, he could do anything in rehearsals. He was the complete showman. As soon as we hopped on that stage, he froze. Absolutely froze. And we're just sitting there going, luckily, we had a rhythm guitarist. He took over and played all the leads for us. But we just sort of looked at Rod and I thought, no, you got to go. But we kept, I think we had him on about 4 was the volume. And they had something like 20 complaints in the first song. We were too loud. So, but we just thought we hadn't even cranked it up yet. So that was an interesting gig. And actually it got shut down because there's a big blues started amongst the students. At these sort of private schools, they invite the next private school across. So like you got an all-girls school, all-boys school, and then they'll join. And whilst the blues going on, Russell sat there and commentated the fight. And it's a left hook that isn't a right. We just sat back and laughed. So, and we were using one of Matt Lake's song, which we would sign off with, 12-pound toothbrush. And of course, once we started playing that, everybody came running back onto the dance floor. We go, no, we're finished now. So, but everybody had a sign-off tune, a couple of bars or whatever. So, yeah, it was good fun.
Do you think that that music and being in the band and everything, was that the main thing that shaped you as a person in those years?
Probably to a certain degree. When I look at what I've done in that part of the industry, it's what we call natural progression, I suppose. When you realise that your band's not going to do any good, you move on, and I became more of a roadie. And we was sort of doing to be within the top 10 roadies floating around at that stage. Worked with a band called One Ton Gypsy. And the main bloke in that band was a guy called Ray Brown. Now, Ray Brown was from the 60s. And he had a couple of big hits here. And I remember we done a lunchtime gig. That's where we first met him. And he came up, he's wearing a big 10-gallon hat, cowboy hat, and he says, I'm Ray Brown, with an accent. I thought, oh, yeah, who the fuck's Ray Brown like? We didn't know who he was. But they were playing some stuff that just wasn't being heard here. And I thought, yeah, he's all right. And he said, we've got another gig tonight. You guys want to? I said, yeah, we'll work it. And it was out in the western suburbs. And you really had to watch your back out in the western suburbs. You just never knew what was going to happen. And so we get out there and set up. And I said, how many numbers you got? He said, 8. We go, 8 songs. He said, yep. I said, you're in the western suburbs, they're going to kill you. I said, there's no argument, they will kill you. He said, they won't even know. And it was a 4-hour gig back in those days. And nobody knew. The way they upped them, changed them up, changed them down. And I was just sitting there looking and going, you're unbelievable. And I said, how long you been? He said, we've only been together for 2 weeks. Oh, right. So we stayed with them. And they were part of Mushroom Records back in those days. So we got quite a bit of work. And we got to the stage, and he said to me, he says, Ray Evans, who was Michael Knitzky's partner back in those days, said, Ray wants to buy you a truck, whatever you want. I said, right. And he said, then we're going to do a tour around Australia, then we're off to the States again. Oh, well, that sounds good. Only problem with that, I still had another 12 months to go on my apprenticeship. And as the old man said, don't care what you do, get a trade behind you first. So I said, not going. And I finished my trade. But they imploded in about 12 months after that, as all good bands do. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, I caught up with Ray a few times. They'd done a Mushroom Country tour, which finished at Heidelberg Town Hall. So we went out and caught up with them there. And that was really good fun. Sitting out in the green room, and you had Broderick Smith, Dingoes, you had Matt Lake, it was everybody. Bobby Lloyd was the main act. So there was joints being passed around all over the place. And so, yeah, it was just real good fun. So, but all good things must come to an end, Vince. And it did. But it was, quite a few years later. So, but you'll learn very quick. Your music industry will chew you up and spit you out. And people forget who you are within minutes. I had a pretty serious accident in the truck. And nobody wanted to know me after that. Yeah, it's a real savage industry. So, and you just walk away from it. Which is what I did. And sat back. Never touched the guitar for 30 years. And then caught up with Phil. And he said, birthday's coming up. I said, we'll put the band together. And he says, no. He rang me up. He said, can we do it? I said, yeah. I know a guitarist. So we put the band together. And we only had 6 rehearsals. And put a set together. And when we finished playing that, he came up and he said, 10 people want to book us. I go, 10 people are not getting us. We're finished. That was a one-off thing. And that was the end of that. So, and then I think it would be my birthday party would be the next time I played. Well, Fed Hicken played. And that was pretty good. So, and then your wedding, which was a disaster, band-wise.
Yeah,
it was.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, but everybody left to go home. But
we had fun.
Yeah, but I haven't touched the guitar since. So yeah, it's one of those things. But arthritis now in the hands, so I'm buggered. So, but anyway, that's the way it goes.
I was telling Vince on the way up here about the motorcycle saga.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, I reckon there's still more stories to tell about music and the roadieing.
I want to go back. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Before we get ahead of ourselves. So I suppose this particularly applies to when you were playing music.
Yeah.
But even just being a roadie, I know I've heard a couple of good stories.
From her? From
you.
Oh.
That sounds so excited.
You put your foot in it now.
Yeah. And Tom's put it really well here in the sort of notes of rock star moments. Do you have any moments that you felt like a rock star in a good way or a bad way?
Maybe something like cutting up your mother's dress for a cape. just off the top of my head, I don't know if you would have done that.
I didn't do it.
No, it's true.
Mum did it, not me.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it so much better then. I'm sure Nan would have absolutely loved that.
Yeah. And it was a gig over in Glenferrie Road, Rembrandt's. It was upstairs. It had a dome roof on it. So making the acoustics very difficult to work with. And I was out there. I went out there with another band, dropped some gear off for them. And I was sitting there setting up, talking to one of the guys there. And he said to me, he said, they didn't tell you what this venue is, did they? I said, no. He said, it's a gay nightclub. Well, fair enough, And we're out in the green room. And the band never said anything. They were nice band. Can't think who they were. And I thought, I'll just go and have a look at who's playing. And I thought this person with long hair, I thought, in flares. I thought, okay. They're all dressed the same. Turned around, he had a big full beard on him. I'll go back into the green room now. And that's where I stayed. But they actually had 2 armed guards down on the front door. So they took security pretty serious. And I suppose back in the 70s, there's probably a lot of gay bashings and whatever going on. And I spoke to them and I got my band in there. So we had to go and rehearse for them. And, or not rehearse, audition. Molly Meldrum was there. We had a chat and we got halfway through a song. They said, yep, good enough. You're playing on this date. So I thought, okay. And we were still trying to find our own identity, I suppose. And yeah, I had this cape made up. The singer who we pinched from another band, only a young kid, 16, he wore a set of tails and whatever. So it was a bit of fun. But yeah, I think we played for 45 minutes tops, and we got paid $100. So by the time we paid for all the high gear, we got $7 each.
That hasn't changed.
No.
I feel like that's all part and parcel of playing gigs.
It is.
You get paid this much, but by the time you take all your expenses out, divvy it up between everyone in the band, it's absolute peanuts.
Yeah. So, but we were the support act for Colleen Hewitt. She was the main act. And a band called Hot City Bump Band, which were very big back in those days. About an 8-piece band. But they were more into a bit of the reggae style music and whatnot. And we, unfortunately, we went up on the top stage, which meant we had to contend with the dome also. And the guys that set up said, you can have the main stage downstairs and we'll play in the back part. I said, no, I said, we want to be up there. Worst decision I ever made. Should never have gone up there because the whole sound's just bouncing straight off the roof, and it was 10 times louder than what it should have been. Where if you, as you know, down on ground level, people are absorbing that sound, then that would have been a lot better. But you live and learn by your mistakes. So, but $7, biggest paid job we ever had. It was great. So, I actually got photos of it here too. So, with the cape in it too.
Yeah, I think they're the ones that you put on Facebook, aren't they?
Oh, I think I did years ago.
Yeah, I think
bit of a giggle.
Yeah, I think I've seen them floating around.
Yeah.
So I might throw one up on the screen.
Have some overlays.
Yeah, for anyone watching.
Yeah.
We had a bloke, Rod, organised for this photographer who worked for the Herald. And they're crap photos. It's a little bit out of focus and whatever else and pixelated. It's just not good enough. But it was a fun gig. So, and what else? Billy Thorpe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I distinctly remember when Billy Thorpe died. We were sitting down at the dinner table having dinner. And it come up on the news, Billy Thorpe dead. And the only thing you said was something along the lines of, that prick still owes me a guitar pick.
Yep.
That's all I can remember from it.
Yep. That's exactly right. That was at the White Horse Hotel, which now is where Harvey Norman's is there in White Horse Road. Big venue, music venue. And we're at the back and I thought we just said, has anyone got a spare pick? Oh, yeah, I've got one. Oh, thank you. Never saw it again. End of story. That was it, gone. And I've always said, he stole my pick. So, but yeah. And you got that. And another one. I got the blame for that. Another venue was called Garrison down in Paran. And that was in High Street, just near Chapel. And then you had the Station Hotel in Greville Street. And Garrison was closing down, so they recorded the last 3 days. Back then, you could have music from Thursday through to Sunday. There was heaps of venues. And we played Station Hotel, went around to Garrison, And we set up there. It was being recorded. And one of Thorpe's roadies, Spy, came in. And he's looking at me. And I'd stand out in the middle of the room and make sure the balances were right. And he looked at me and he says, "What's wrong with Ray?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "He's not singing too well." I said, "Well, we just played around the corner." I said, "We've only had a couple of joints." He said, "That's the problem. He's stoned." And I said, "Maybe, possibly." 3 days of live recordings, one bloke had to go back in the studios and redub the voices. And that was Ray. Only one out of 3 days of live recordings. And I got the blame for it. Because I thought it was unfair, but out the back, it was a funny little setup, Garrison. It had 2 rooms behind the stage. And you would bump in through one room and bump out through the other one. And in between them was a little cubbyhole. And there was a bloke around called Leo De Castro. He was a Maori. And Leo, they say, would send himself off to the psych ward every 6 months. But he sat there and he had this blue check lumber jacket and the biggest joint you've ever seen. And he's walking around this joint, hanging out his mouth, doing Humphrey Bogart impersonations out the back room. And then he'd go and open up the little cubbyhole and look out and see who was outside. And he always done that when there was a band playing. And he just annoyed the shit out of everybody. So, but yeah, that was a bit of fun back in those days. And Dutch Tildas, I don't know if you ever heard of Dutch.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an Australian, born bred, and speaks with an American accent. And you would think he was American. But he is he's dead now, very well respected over in America, in New Orleans and all that. He actually played with B.B. King. And King was playing somewhere down there and they let him in and they stopped Dutch, apparently. And B.B. just turned and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, he's not allowed in." He said, "He wrote the songs that I sang." He said, "Let him in." And he was just an easy-going bloke, but he would turn up at a gig with just a guitar. And whoever was there, he would borrow the PA system of this bloke, borrow an amplifier of that bloke, borrow this, borrow that. And Ray said to him, he said, "Oh, Dutch wants to speak to you." I said, "Okay. What do you want, Dutch? Can you mix the sound for me?" "Okay." So I'd done a check. I said, "How's that?" He said, "How's it sound to you?" I said, "Sounds good." He said, "That's good enough for me." And away we went. So it's just a really nice bloke. But yeah, he died of cancer. Going to be best part of 5 years ago. So and his last album was called "Going on a Journey," which I thought was pretty appropriate. So and he knew he was dying then. So, but yeah, you'd see a lot of those things. But just going back to that Mushroom tour. When we're out in the back room, the drummer out of Ray's band, Wayne Bennett, another Reservoir boy, is sitting there and he's all giggles. He had this Sheila with him. And Lobby was the last act going on, and Wayne said, "Come on, everybody out the front, everybody out the front." And we're all sitting off the side of the stage and going, "What's going on?" He said, "You'll see in a minute." Next minute, the Sheila's jumped up on stage and started stripping. And he's in fits of laughter. And by the time the security got through to her, she was down to her bra and knickers. And he's still pissing himself laughing. I'm going, "What's the joke?" He said, "When we're in the green room, I dared her to do it." And I said, "You wouldn't do it." She said, "Yes, I will." And he said, "No, you won't do it." And she did. Well, we're all sitting there, we're just cracked up. And don't know how far she would have went, but unfortunately security got to her. So
You can always trust security to ruin a good time.
oh, you can sometimes, but yeah, they were fun times. Really fun times.
What about when you were roadieing?
Yeah.
How long did that go on for? And do you have anything that went spectacularly wrong?
Nothing went spectacularly wrong. And I think it was because we knew what we were doing. We put the first 1,000-watt PA system together here in this country. And that's Billy Thorpe got kicked out of the UK because he was too loud and whatever else. And he had a 300-watt PA system, which was pretty big back in those days. You go back to 70, 72. So we used that as the fallback system. And then we merged a 400 and 600-watt PA system into one. And it was at Box Hill Town Hall. And the stage is the best part of 4 foot off the ground. This was back in the day of the skinheads. When the skinheads dance, they just stomp their feet and move a finger. And I had to climb the stack of speakers to make sure all the horns and tweeters were working. There was 2,000 kids in the hall. And I miscalculated. What I thought was going to be a bass horn turned out to be a tweeter. It almost blew me off the stage. And I'm about 20 foot up in the air.
Yeah.
And I always remember hanging on, going, shit. And all I could see was these stomping feet. I thought, this is it. It's over. But managed to hang on and got off that and couldn't hear properly for a day or two. But so yeah, that was an interesting time. But no, nothing ever went wrong. I know it was meant to be 74, maybe 75 at Sunbury, and Deep Purple were playing. They were the main act. Mate said to me, "Oh, so-and-so's going out to Sunbury to take some gear out. You want to come along?" I said, "No," because I didn't like this other person. He was just an arrogant person, another roadie. And I said, "Not going." And when Russell got back, he said, "You should have come." Why was that? He said it was almost on behind stage between the Aussie roadies and the Pommy roadies. And the Poms had 20-odd roadies for Purple, where we would probably only have 3 or 4, if that. So certain comments were made, and then somebody picked up a hunk of scaffolding pipe and started swinging. So I got pretty serious backstage. But I thought, yeah, I should have went out there after all, because that would have been a bit of fun. But they came in and they cut all the cloth out of the Marshall amps. Because that's the way they like them. They want the speakers to be on show. And John Abbott, who ran Dane Hire, who I used to work for, he was screaming his tits off. Because like Marshall amps, and they said, "Don't worry about it. Paul McCartney's coming out next month. We'll send out a roll of cloth with you." Sure enough, a roll of cloth turned up. So he recovered all the speakers. So, yeah. But, yeah, no, we had no major fails, ever. Couple of moments where tensions probably got a bit iffy. Sandown Park Hotel on Dandy Road. Worked out there a band called Tank one night. And when we set everything up, their roadie Barney handed me a piece of water pipe. I said, "Well, I want that for?" He said, "You might need it later on." "Why is that?" He said, "Well, Ted Mulry played here the other week, And their blokes had to use baseball bats in front of the crowd. That was just on for young and old. She was a rough pup. Rough pup.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, but it was part and parcel. You know, part and parcel of what went on. I never seen any real blues. So, but yeah, some of the others did. But it's just the way it went. So, yeah.
Oh, right. So, yeah, I was telling Vince in the car on the way up here about racing motorbikes.
Yes.
And how it was looked down upon just even having a bike. Yeah, what got you into not knowing what happened? What possessed you to actually get a bike?
Stupidity. No, we were actually out at the Speedway one night and I ran a couple of schoolmates who was racing and racing sidecars. I said, it looks like a bit of fun. I wouldn't mind having a crack at that. He said, I know a bike for sale. And he basically just pushed me into it. And I thought, oh, okay. And I couldn't back out. But, as you know, with me, if I say something, that's it.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, I got into it. I thought, okay. And we bought the bike. Well, I bought the bike. Put a driver into it. I was the passenger. Got thinner back in those days. And we just rode around paddocks till we got used to how the bike worked. And, of course, I know what you're alluding to. And I kept it away from my grandmother because her son, who was also Donald James, got killed on a motorbike. And it was only recently we found out where it at. We knew it was in Ballarat, but it was actually out of Beaufort.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting considering that we ran the pub out there. I've actually got the little news clipping of it here.
Yeah, I think you sent me a photo of it.
Yeah, and he was a pillion passenger. They were coming back from the footy, and the guy ran off the road and hit a tree. He died the next day in hospital here at Ballarat Base. So, because I was named after him, and my grandmother thought I was the bee's knees, regardless. And we kept it hidden from her for, a couple of years. And it was Sam's christening. We finished racing that night and I didn't take the bike off the ute. So when we went to the christening, I parked the car way up out of the way. But she spotted it. And she said, is that your motorbike? Yeah. Didn't speak to me for a day or two. But I understand why. So then we raced and done that for probably 5 years, I suppose. Spent a lot of money on them. And you never told your partner how much you spent. I gave it away for a couple of years and went back. How much is that going to cost? Oh, it's only $500. Well, I actually spent $1,500. So back in the 80s, that was still a fair amount of money. And went back for one season and thought, no, I've had enough of this. Walked away again. So, but yeah. But we'd race Warrnambool, all around Victoria. And then we went up to Canberra and raced up there for one night. So that was all right. But they were all young bucks. And I was only 27. And one of the guys said, you've got to be careful, you old blokes. And I was going, well, who's the old bloke? And he said, you. I thought, that's it, I'm out. They were all 18, 19-year-olds. Had no fear. So walked away from it.
I genuinely have no idea what other questions I wrote down for racing. Just so you know, I can't read. It's very small writing.
Yeah, that's on purpose. I just don't want you to have any control, you see.
Oh, okay, that checks out. Yeah. You've always been a control freak, even in the band.
That's how things work, right?
Not allowed to play my songs, but we play all yours.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
There's a thing about singers, Tommy. I've told you that.
Yeah, just like as Eddie Van Halen said, they suffered from LSD, lead singer disease.
Well, that's a new version, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
You know, we've been through that. Singer says, look at me. I'm the show.
Yeah, that's it.
Lead guitarists go, no, look at me. I can do this.
Yep.
Drummers have anger management issues.
Yep.
And without a bass player, none of them are any good.
Exactly right.
So I rest my case.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, still talking about me. No. What do you think it is that actually attracted you to racing motorcycles? Adrenaline? Was it an act of rebellion?
No. It wasn't that rebellion. No, it was just another sport to try. There was nothing.
Just look fun?
Yeah, just a bit of fun. See how fast you can go. See if you can kill yourself.
You tried.
Come close a couple of times. No, it's just, it's one of those things, I'll have a crack at anything. As the old man said, Game and Ned Kelly are more front than Myers.
Say that again?
The old man always said, I was gaming than Ned Kelly and had more front than Myers.
More front than Myers.
Yeah, it's an old saying. You seen the front of Myers, how big it is? Well, it just comes down to how do I put it? If you're game enough to do it, you just got more front than, I'll have a crack at anything. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I know where you got it from then.
Yeah, 100%. Although my saying's a little bit different. It's nut up or shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but same premise.
Yeah, so, but that's just the way it was. Don't tell me I can't do anything, because I'll prove you wrong. Bit difficult now as I get older, but
Now the doctor says that you can't do something and you're like, yeah, probably shouldn't.
Well, when I was in physio, they said, yeah, you can't do this, and want to make a bet. And
how quickly did you lose the bet?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. And one of the physio gave up on me in the end. She said, I want you to lift 15 kilos. Going, yep. And I say, yeah, don't. She said, 15. I said, no, 25. She go, 25. I said, yeah. I said, I couldn't feel it at 15. And she got to stage. She said, just do what you want. She said, you're not going to listen to me. I said, probably not. I'll go lift what I want. So that was Kendall. That was 8 weeks, 10 weeks of physio. After that, 4. So that was a bit of fun. So now, but I basically still have rehab once a week. So, but you learn that the mind says you can still do it, but the body tells you very quickly you can't. You blokes have still got to find out that you're only young. So, and it's a conversation I've had with Danny a lot. You're so used to what you were able to do, where it's now hard to accept that you can't do that anymore. And I think I told you when I was come back from the airport on the bus to go to the car park. Young girl there with a baby gets up and said, I said, no, you got a baby, you sit there. And one of her friends then hopped up and gave me a seat. And I wasn't even thinking about it until I read the sign. Give up your seat to elderly people, disabled people. I thought, am I that old? And do I really look that old now? And
you're at that. You've no longer fallen down, had a fall. That's when you know you've crossed the line over into being part of the elderly community.
Yeah.
When you have a fall, you haven't just fallen down.
Yeah. I was somewhere on Friday. I went and picked my Amy up. There's a little indentation in the dirt. And I put my foot in that and I can feel it starting to move. So that old age, I now look down to make sure I'm walking on level ground. That's a scary thought when you're, 6 foot and bulletproof and all of a sudden, hang on, you're 6 foot and now frail. That's a scary thought. But given everything that I've done, I don't regret any of it. It's been
at some stage, everything that you've done to that point catches up.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I should have been dead at 21 when I put the truck into a pole.
Yeah, right.
I told you that.
Probably. I was thinking on the bike and the wall.
Oh, no, that's
that one as well. There's probably a few times you should have been dead.
No, the truck was really weird. Might have had some drugs involved in it. But,
why does that not surprise me?
Well, I was young. And it was a transit van, so it was fully loaded up with all the band gear. And there was 8 inches between the steering wheel and the seat.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
With me in the middle of it. And got hit by about a ton of gear straight in the back. And because it was a transit, it had sliding doors on it. All I could hear was this hissing noise, which was obvious was the radiator. And I tried to slide out of the van and got my foot caught up underneath the clutch pedals. So I'm just hanging outside the van. People thought I was dead. But yeah. But everything was all right, didn't break a bone. Went off to hospital, mandatory blood tests, 4 hours observation, and home I went. PAs and everything else weren't looking too good. They were a bit sick. Oh, that's right, I didn't tell you about Peter Pointons, did I?
No, I don't think so.
Peter Pointons. It was a pub in Carlton. It's now a restaurant. And one of the bands that I'd done a little bit of work with, John Van Boxtel, John ran his own music shop. He set up Sunday night gigs there. And all the gear was kept down in the cellars. It was the bars trying to pull it all back up, set up. But it was the only live music venue on a Sunday night in the whole of Melbourne. And it would be packed once we got out. And so I done all the sound work and the light show, which was just like pelmet boxes with lights in it and a little switchboard and flick them on and off and whatever else. There was nothing sophisticated back in those days. And John got to the stage where you have guest people come in. And I reckon Richie Blackmore played there one night out of Purple. They were playing, they looked for somewhere to go and relax. But 2 of the main guys in the band went on to be members of LRB.
Yeah, right.
Dave Briggs and George McCargle was the bass player. George only hung around for a couple of years with them. And he's a minister of religion now up in Queensland. But he was a really quite nice bloke. And John actually toured with LRB. On his Facebook site, there was a lot of photos when they were touring in the US. So he may have sat in for Derek Panucci at some stage on drums, but I don't know. But I haven't seen John for I don't know how long. But so yeah, Davey Briggs, he runs a recording studio in North Melbourne. And the others are all floating around wherever. So yeah, it was a little bit different, but Pointons, it was the place to be. So and I had the front row seat to that. So that was good stuff.
So with the racing, it's obviously very dangerous and expensive, as you mentioned.
Mm.
When you did finally walk away, which part of it was it? Was it really just the danger, or was the expense getting up there as well?
wasn't the danger. No, they were all just too young. And I just thought, no, I'm getting too old for this. I was 27, 28. And there was a couple of guys down there at Avalon where they thought they were better than everybody else. And to me, it wasn't a happy place to be. So Shane Suter, he was quick, but he was dangerous. I could see that. And he went on, he ended up going to Europe and raced circuit sidecars, which is different to being on dirt. And he had a very bad accident. He spent months and months in hospital. The whole bike just took up and spiraled up there and come down like they're doing 150 mile an hour. And I remember they flew him back in a plane on a stretcher. So it was touch and go for him. But you can tell if somebody's reckless. And I just thought, nah, he's going to hurt himself or somebody else. And I just walked away from it. And that was it. Didn't even think twice about it. No, that's it. That one you're talking about when I hit the fence.
Yeah. You've heard that story once or twice?
Yeah, that was... It's interesting. I've got 2 photos of it, luckily. And it showed me exactly what happened. Now, your passenger on these things moves all his way forward so the ass end will swing out. That particular night, this guy was on the back wheel, so he drove it. And just drove it straight into the fence, nothing to do about it. And it threw him halfway up the straight. Then me, and then the bike. And from what I've heard, apparently the bike landed very, very close to my head. And some of the girls would cry and they thought the bike had actually hit me. But it must have been very close. So, yeah, it's a dangerous sport. But that's racing. It's like any motorsport. You know, there's another bloke the night of my first marriage. He was racing in Bendigo and he killed himself. Had a fall and the handlebars went straight through the helmet. Boom, boom. So, Peter Tolley, he was up in Mildura. He was the pit marshal and there was a massive accident there and he got knocked out. One of the guys came over the fence. But there was about 3 killed in that one, in the one race. So it is very competitive. And some guys just get white line fever and will spend thousands just to be that little bit more competitive. And to go the other way, a friend of mine got me into it, committed suicide. And they say it because he felt that he wasn't competitive anymore. That's how serious he took it. And I've seen that in him. So, yeah, at what cost? At what cost? But, so racing, I only raced about 5 years, I think, and give it away.
You took any life lessons out of being in that sphere?
I didn't fear anything, mate. You know, you just get out there and give it a run, and I was never scared, ever. Couple of times I should have been, but I wasn't. So, life skills. Yeah, you learn to slow down on the road. That's a good one. Yeah. Because you've already got that adrenaline out of your system, racing. And then you just want a nice, quiet drive home. So, which was virtually all the time. But I suppose in some cases I would cut the corners, I'd square corners up. which was a bad habit I've got. So you cross another line, no, I'm just squaring it up. Because that's what you do when you're racing. You know, when you find the apex of the corner, that's the way you go. And it's a bad habit to have sometimes. So, but yeah. But it was just an adventure, just a sport to do. That's all there was to it. So, but enjoyable. Expensive, but enjoyable.
What kind of bikes did you run?
Triumph. Only had the one. And used to import my pistons and that from the UK. Because they were a special racing piston. So that'd be bought in. And I sold it for what I paid for it.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that was all right. So, and I was probably spent more on it than what I actually paid for it. So, but it was a quick bike. And it went hard and fast. So, but because I was self-employed, I didn't take those chances like everybody else. Because I had a business to run. And the insurance policy back in those days only paid you $50 a week. So you'll get nothing. So the business had to come first. And that's probably why you don't. As I say, when you start second-guessing yourself, that's when you give it away. Because if you watch these guys today, there's no guessing. Oscar Piastri's the classic for him. And it's 110% all the time. When you stop and think, that's when you're going to make a mistake.
Which is what Lando Norris is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's second-guessing himself. And that's when you know you've got to walk away from it. So you weren't doing it for the money, because if you want to race, the best you could do was $12 for a win. It was $3 to start, provided you got 6 foot over the line, and $3 per point. So it's like 3, 2, 1. So $12 is the best you could do. And you would normally get 2 races. So the best you do on a night is $24. And what's that paying for?
Nothing.
No.
Wouldn't even pay for the fuel, would it?
Depends. I was lucky I got sponsored on my fuel, where I got it at wholesale price. But, yeah, it wouldn't cover your cost going out to the Speedway and back again. Especially if you went to Warrnambool, they give you $10 travelling money. Big deal. So, but yeah, you're doing it because you loved the sport. And that was it. It was fun times.